for you, Barbara. Good name, Barbara.
Yes. And I'm totally leaving that in the video, by the way. Hi, I'm Michelle, and this is my romantic tangle, and it is October 20th, and today my boys and I went for a walk in the historic Pioneer Cemetery to see if we could find any interesting symbolic headstone carvings. And we did, and I've been filming, so I will cobble it all together and take you with us. If you go on Pinterest, you can find all of this fantastic headstone carving. And I wanted to check out our local cemetery and see if there was anything of that league here where we could look at it. And of course, our cemetery is not old enough to have the Death's Head angels or any of that. This is much more Victorian when there is artwork to find. And most of the headstones are just names and dates and possibly epitaphs. Some of it much more ornate than others. One of the things that gets me about this cemetery is it is close to such a busy road, but once you're actually a few rows in, it gets very quiet. We found lots and lots of clasped hands, and if you look, one of the hands is living and actively clasping the other one, which is not holding the hand back. If I can remember the videos I watched a few weeks ago when I was making those polymer clay needle minders, it was symbolic of the living saying goodbye to the dead. I'm just fascinated by this wreath that says my husband. All of those flowers and leaves have to have been added on to the stone, right? This cemetery has, I think it said close to 9,000 graves, and these two, it's husband and wife, and over the years they've settled, so they're kind of leaning into each other. And I tried to explain to my husband after we got home how amazingly romantic I found that, and he didn't get it. I love the willows too. Probably my favorite of the art is the willows. There's another really good one. And I think part of my thought process here is I am fascinated by mourning samplers. And there are some members of the family who have passed away who I don't know enough about them to do like an amazing spot sampler. I want to do one of those for my grandma Wittenberg. But there's some other family members I would love to do a sampler in their honor, but I don't know enough about the details of their day-to-day life to feel like I could put together something that really captured them in a whole bunch of little images. So I'm thinking maybe I could come up with a mourning sampler that had some well-selected little details. Here's a finger pointing up. It says "Gone Home." This is, again, one of the more ornate ones. I think the little kind of foundation-looking frames of concrete are delineating family plots, but that's just guesswork on my part. This cemetery was vandalized a lot over the years. It didn't used to be fenced in, and a lot of the stones, if you're watching, you can tell where they have been shattered from falling over, or I'm afraid to say being tipped over, and they have been restored as best anyone could do. And I think they're making a much greater effort to preserve them now. Okay, here we have the finger pointing up, "Gone Home," and the other family members have the clasped hands. I'm really curious to know what the thought process was behind who got what. And I wanted to pull back that branch so I could get a look at what was behind it, and I was so terrified to gently settle it back in place because I did not want it to snap and hit that headstone. Here's one that hasn't been put back up into position. Now, does that mean it's fallen again since they restored the cemetery? Or they could never get it back up? I also love the books and scrolls. There is one stone, and I couldn't find it this trip. All it is a little open book. The name and the dates have totally worn away. And these three scrolls, I didn't see any names or dates, but I also didn't want to step up there and look too closely, but you have 2 small ones and a larger one, and I drew some conclusions based on that were sad, and hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Of course, it's a cemetery from 150 years ago, so obviously some of the people in it died young. And I think any cemetery, new or old, you're going to find headstones of people who died young. It was warmer than I expected it to be. I had dressed for cold weather, and one of the reasons I did not film the audio while walking through, besides the fact that I had the boys with me and they had all kinds of interesting interjections to make, mostly, "Mom, you're standing on someone, move." But I was pretty out of breath, and I don't think I could have strung together a coherent story as we made our way through. There's a boy. I used to, before they had the fences, I would walk up to the newer location of my parents' appliance store after school some days and would cut kitty corner through the edge of the cemetery. But one afternoon, I thought I heard stone scraping on stone. I am sure it was all in my head because I was alone there. I bolted out of there as fast as I could, and that was the last time I ever went through the cemetery alone. I brought the boys with me on this afternoon, but it was more because I was concerned about the living. Those 2 tall stones there, that is Mr. Bush of Bush House and Bush's Pasture Park, and his wife. I didn't look to see which wife. I think there was more than one. And this is one of the 2 mausoleums, or it might be 3. It is really easy to get turned around in this place. And I mean, I always knew where the road was and where my car was. But as far as telling where we had been and where we still had to explore, I didn't get to all of it by a long shot. Is there a knife in with those flowers? The boys say they saw one, and I think I see what they saw, but I'm not quite sure. Some of these carvings are hard to interpret, and there was a lot of glare. This is a scroll, and it looks like it's draped over a little stone wall. I had a hard time. Those are carved deliberately lines. I'm not sure if they're meant to look like bricks or stones. And tell me what you see here on top of this stone. From a distance, I thought it was a lamb that might have lost its head, but it is intact. I'm not sure if the head is tucked down. The inscription is "Call back not the deer departed." The proportions don't look right to me. And probably figuring out what that animal was the least important thing. We've had some debates in our household about whether it is okay and respectful to go through and explore old cemeteries. We were careful. We watched where we put our feet. We kept our voices low. There are actually, I don't know what you call them, the dispensers of dog do bags in there. So I think a lot of people do walk through the cemetery. And with all of the effort, my thought process is with all of the effort that was put into these stones, people wanted their loved ones to be remembered. That's a guess on my part. It's also it's amazing to imagine how the world used to be. This stone is carved to look like logs, and from the other side, I don't know why I was so sure it would be a man's stone, but it's the wife of someone. I can't remember what that insignia was. It was an organization she belonged to. That's probably one of the more ornate stones there in the cemetery. What are the dates on that one? I had to look at it twice to be sure.
It is really easy when you're deeper up in the cemetery to forget that you are so close to such a busy road. 200 feet back and you could not hear this traffic. And if you look at that building right there across the street is where my parents' appliance store used to stand, and we actually lived in the apartment upstairs when I was an infant, which I was too young then to be creeped out about it, but now I may have changed my tune.
Thank you for joining us on our walk through the cemetery. What intrigued you the most? I really found a lot more artwork than I thought I would, and it definitely gave me some idea for the mourning samplers that I hope to do in the future, and led to some interesting conversations with the boys. I'm Michelle. This is my romantic tangle. We're having a lot of fun gearing up towards Halloween, and I will be back with you with more videos soon.